I'm Alessandra Barrett, Senior Content Editor for JOC, and I'm at our 2019 LogTech Conference with Brian Burke, Vice President of Marketing for Seco Logistics. Great to have you here, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you're on our cross-border e-commerce panel, just looking at how we manage the sometimes unrealistic expectations that are being set by e-commerce. Can you give me just sort of a snapshot of that panel and the topics being covered?
Sure, and it's highly appropriate for this conference because it really is the intersection of freight, logistics, and technology. Because in this space in particular, for us, the technology is what's driving the freight. So we're moving air freight all around the world on behalf of our clients, which are retailers, brand owners, marketplaces, and sellers. And we're moving them as ULDs, air freight. But actually, they're really just parcels. They're individual consumer packages that are moving from point A to point B all around the world. And the panel really covered a lot of the aspects of the technology required to implement and execute a global supply chain, or is what we're calling really a demand chain all around the world. But then there's also a technology element where no one retailer, no one brand, no one 3PL or freight forwarder can do it all on their own anymore. So partnerships and integrations are becoming critically important when you look at the intersection of freight, logistics, and technology.
What areas of tech are you focusing on?
So the areas of tech that we're focusing on are really revolving around two specific areas. The first area is around the execution. So when we're moving parcels all around the world and we're moving them as ULDs or air freight containers, it's still important and crucial for the retailer and for the brand and ultimately for the consumer to be able to know where that parcel is, regardless of what container or what final mile postal carrier or what facility it's being labeled and packed and shipped out of. It's the seamless visibility and tracking at parcel level and invoicing at parcel level, regardless of how the freight moves and how many legs it's moving throughout the chain. And we're saying demand chain instead of supply chain because cross-border e-commerce in particular is really a response in consumer demand. It's positioning inventory and SKU variety online through new channels that weren't available 5 or 10 years ago, and now consumers all around the world have access to the global economy, and being able to sell into markets all around the world and position your inventory and reallocate inventory all around the world, that's really a response to demand. And so companies are not just thinking about building their supply chains, they're building their demand chains. So to execute on that requires a lot of technology and innovation and investment. So that's one area that we've been focusing on from a technology standpoint is how do we actually move these parcels around the world? How do we provide seamless tracking and visibility to the end consumer? And how do we do this both in a compliant fashion, still meeting customs and duty and VAT regulations all around the world, and VAT deferment and VAT returns, and there's a lot that goes into cross-border e-commerce from an execution side, and technology is critical in order to execute on a global supply chain, or as we say, demand chain. But the second element, and this is really where it's getting more interesting, is that we talk about how no retailer or brand or freight forwarder can do it all on their own, and that's absolutely true. So in today's environment, you need partnerships, you need integrations, you need to build extensible systems that can integrate easily and efficiently with new carriers, with new platforms. So whether it's Shopify or ShipStation or one of our colleagues on the panel, which was Augustine from EasyShip, it's really about building an ecosystem of partnerships. And that's where technology becomes critically important because you need to be able to integrate via APIs and not just EDI anymore. And that's a shift in thinking because APIs are much more suited to the speed of e-commerce and especially for global e-commerce. So those are really the two areas that we're focusing on from a technology standpoint as it relates to cross-border e-commerce.
Thanks so much for taking time to sit down with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I've been speaking with Brian Burke, Vice President of Marketing for Seco Logistics.